Well, thank you for staying with us. You are watching AM Live once again. Just to reintroduce my panelists this morning, Professor Collins Miruka, Public and Development Expert, Engineer Howard Mai, who is a member of the Institution of Engineers Kenya, Daniel Kilu, the CEO of Sikika Road Safety, as well as David Kiarie, the Chair of the Road Safety Association of Kenya. Like I said, yesterday we did hear from the Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen, who says the ministry is going to institute a raft of measures to be able to curb road carnage in the country. He says he is going to have drivers tested afresh, as well as the relocation of all markets on road reserves. He did say this during the prayer and fundraising services of the victims of the Londiani Junction crash. Let's have a look at what he had to say before we get into conversation.
All vehicles that will carry the people of Kenya and commercial vehicles on the road must be fitted with dashboard cameras and vehicle telematics. Vehicle telematics, Your Excellency, will have GPS system showing where a vehicle will be at any particular time. It will have a black box recorder that will be transmitting the speed of every vehicle at any given time.
So tungetaka kuuliza wabunge wetu, when those regulations come before the National Assembly, the way our very able speaker has committed, let us support the minister and the ministry so that we can create sanity in our roads and save lives.
Now, looking at the latest statistics by NTSA as of the 26th of June this year, there were 2,124 deaths recorded between January and that period of time. That is not including that accident that has caused the lives of 53 people, 32 seriously injured. And these numbers are quite startling because we're only half through the year. And you know, we suddenly usually see more accidents actually happening towards the end of the year. So this is doesn't look very good for us. There is always a lot of traffic checks, Prof. Let me begin with you. Along major highways, we see, you know, traffic officers flagging down cars, commercial vehicles, public service vehicles. But it appears that this isn't just for safety, because it doesn't really help. Do we need all these traffic stops along our major highways if we're not going to be able to curb our road carnage?
It is indeed, has often been said, that doing the same thing and expecting different results is foolhardy. And I think any Kenyan with an ID would tell you those police officers don't help. Rarely do you see that they have actually arrested suspects or somebody was driving fake vehicles. They are actually toll stations. All of us know that. And then, as we are saying, if we don't deal with the behavior change aspect from the police themselves, from the people themselves, it won't work. The best example, I think sometime last year, the nation carried out a very comprehensive survey of these new markets that are being built everywhere, all over the country. In fact, they started as the economic stimulus program under President Kibaki, that are empty. Nobody moves into them. So even today, if you went and built another market next to Londiani there, chances are people want to move into them. So doing the same thing again and again that does not give results is foolhardy. We don't know why they are doing them. The police officers shouldn't be there somewhere in the bush collecting toll station. They should actually be next to these centers, next to where the county officials and askaris are actually collecting toll for the counties, and assist them there by looking at whether there are contraband goods in those vehicles, whether the vehicles are mechanically all right or not. They should be there with the people. That itself enhances transparency. But being where they are now, I think many observers would agree they are ineffective.
Let's talk about the roadside markets, because it has been one of the major issues, and especially in this particular accident, we've seen the risk that it actually poses. Is it about the design of the highway where we have those roadside markets, or do they just pop up?
The thing is, we don't have and I'm saying this with all due respect to my fellow engineer, Howard, here, that we do not have comprehensive development planning.
Right.
So somebody comes and just does the road. He wants to do the road to the best standards. They have design manuals. Then somebody comes and try to do markets. Then somebody comes. So if these things are not done comprehensively, ideally we have country integrated development plans. Why not have the market and the road and all that designed at the same time, so that vehicles move there at appropriate speeds? So we do not have Kenya is doing this, then Kericho County is doing this. All these are human activities. We know our people want to sell. We know where they need these things to be located. And the priority on those designs should be on the people. We are not designing roads for cars. We are designing roads for people. And the tendency, as an engineer can talk about this, is that we are often led to design roads for cars. And forget the people will use them, the people will pass through them. So that comprehensiveness of a holistic development planning is not undertaken. So the road guy comes, does his roads, puts his signboards, and can very well defend what is done. The market guy comes and does his own other things, and then you just have chaos. At the end of the day, you just have chaos. Today, I think Engineer Howard will also help us there. But I think the road per kilometer cost of road construction in Kenya is among the highest in the region. If you see what Tanzania does with bus stops with the same amount of money, I suspect we could still do the same, so that somebody who's designing that road, by the time they reach Rondiani there, they know there will be a market as well and cater for that. Right now, I think back in my primary school where I come from, I see now Kenya doing roads accessing even those schools.
So you have access roads that now lead away from the highway into
they're going to
trading centers and
the
schools
same
and all
thing
these
should,
things.
in my opinion, happen with the trading center. Whether they do it in collaboration with county government, but they should do is we should first start by how do our people behave?
Right.
Where do they like to sell? Then design a road that caters for those people. That's why the Constitution talks about public participation,
Right.
But the fact that myself, coming from Kisumu, I go to Kitui, design a road because I'm a trained engineer, without caring how do these people sell whatever they sell here, what do they like to see it, where do they put their charcoal, is again, with all humility, foolhardy.
Right. Engineer Howard, your thoughts on the same, and do you think there's no synergy when it comes to designing our roads? Because yes, Kenya will do its job, but then you have perhaps the county governments who also want to provide, you know, services and give this a space for their residents to sell their goods. So you feel there's a mismatch, there's a gap there?
When accidents happen, they elicit emotions. And when we have serious injuries or fatalities, people become angry, people become sympathetic, people empathize.
Right.
But sympathy and empathy in itself, it makes the bereaved to feel better, but it doesn't either resurrect or stop anyone from dying or anyone from being injured. Some action needs to be taken, but I'll go back to where Prof has left. Prof was trying to explain something. I don't know if it came out very clear. You know, all our conversations seem to be converging on highways to a point that we forget that the entire picture of roads is a lot bigger than highways. In Kenya, for example, the Constitution categorizes roads in two broad classes: national roads and county roads. The national roads alone, the national trunk roads alone, are about 206,000 kilometers. Out of the 206,000 kilometers, highways are about 21,000. That's just about 10% of the network. The other percentage are collector roads, primary and secondary road, which serve a certain purpose by the way they are designed, by their typology, their geometry, the design speeds, because from a bigger planning perspective. And even the 21,000 kilometers, if you put it vis-a-vis the bigger number of national roads and then add the county roads, you'll find it's less than 5%. All our focus is on the road. Prof said something that I want to repeat, that when we design roads, we design for human beings. Where we've gone wrong is where we think that designing roads for human beings means that the human beings are supposed to come and sit on the road because we designed it for them. These roads serve different purposes. A highway, for example, serves the purpose of mobility, ride quality, and safety. Essentially, a highway will be designed for speeds of as high as 100 kilometers per hour. A highway is designed to serve vehicular traffic, not pedestrian traffic.
Right.
The moment you bring human beings on a highway with vehicles moving at 100 kilometers per hour, we will keep on going in circles, trying to put a bump here, a road sign here. It is not going to work. The most impactful statement that the CS made, I think, is to begin thinking about moving markets off highways. And that's a decision that we should have made a long time ago. Because when we look at the bigger context of planning, spatial planning, and the Constitution in Article 66 gives the mandate of planning spaces to the government. Maybe I would, allow me to use Swahili. Sio kazi ya wananchi kupanga serikali. Ni kazi ya serikali kupanga wananchi, according to Article 66. So for us to sit and say that because these people like selling there, so we have to put a market there, because they like peeing there, so we need to build a toilet there, that shouldn't work. Because we need to, when we classify, when we do road classification, and we classify a highway as an international trunk road, it is connecting one point from one country to another point to another country. And someone wants to have shorter travel times, he wants to reach there when they have rested. But if we come and put out of 900 kilometers of a road, we put a bump, averagely a bump per kilometer, then we negate the purpose of that highway. Let this less than 5% of infrastructure called highways serve the purpose of a highway. And let vehicles which are using the highway be able to ease into a primary road and then into a secondary road where the travel speeds keep on being dropped. By the time it gets to the last mile connection or street, you know, like streets outside here, if you check the vehicle speeds of the street outside here, because it's in a city and it's expected that there is a higher volume of human beings. If you go to Aga Khan Walk, it's a walk. It is not a road, it's not a highway. You don't expect a vehicle there. And any human being walking on Aga Khan Walk is safe. Anyone walking out here, because the vehicle speeds have been brought down to say 20 kilometers per hour, 5 kilometers per hour, even if they were knocked, they will get injured, but it will not be a serious injury, it will not be a fatality. So we need to go back and begin thinking about the road networks, their functionality, in the bigger context of spatial planning and development control, because that is something we dropped at independence. And we have to go back and begin working backwards. One thing perhaps I would say, what would have been good for the CS to do, I think he needed to tag along his lands counterpart, because the function of spatial planning and development control sits at lands, while the function of designing highways sits at Ministry of Roads and Transport.
Right.
And these two,
so they must work together.
They have to work together, and when they work together, we are perhaps going to get a better solution to this whole problem. Otherwise, we'll be here again next year and the other year discussing about the increase of accidents, because markets and people selling wares on the carriageway and buying them does not work from a spatial planning perspective. It does not work, it won't work, and we cannot afford to say that when they come to the road, therefore we must create the market there. No, these markets must be removed and be taken back to where they're supposed to be, where we can predictably design for the land use that has been planned for that area.
But how viable do you think that is? I mean, there could be a perfect redesigning of the roads where you have, these markets, sit on a certain place where there's access to the markets. But along many highways, even where there are no bumps or where there are no, checks, you'll still find markets there. So is it about a matter of regulation?
Yeah, exactly, because you see the way we've been doing, we are growing our urban spaces by sprawl, not by control. Anyone does anything, anywhere, anytime, as they want. But that's not what Article 66 envisaged. Right. Article 66 envisaged that if you are to build, someone will tell you that this place is zoned for, say, industry. This is an industrial area. This is a production field. It's an agricultural area. So you cannot come here and begin building flats. Okay. This is a residential area where it's an urban residential area. So we put homes there, homes that are livable, of course, designed by professionals, engineers, and architects. Homes which are livable, and where the homes are, we know there are children in those homes who are supposed to go to school. We have a school there. But What is happening right now is that we've brought everything on the highway. Schools are on highways, markets are on highways, hospitals are right on highways, churches and mosques are on highways, and this does not work functionally.
Okay. Let's hear from Daniel. And I mean, do you see the viability of what engineer is saying?
Actually, I want to differ a little bit with engineer here, because I think we can build a quality roads which can accommodate each and every road users. For example, like we can build a road which can accommodate even the vendors. Like for example, engineer, you can agree with me, like at each and every highway, at some point where we feel that these vendors, this is their place where they normally sell, we can try and create a stage, number one, for them to do business. Second, for them they are safe. And number three, all road users at that particular place, they are safe. Let me bring engineer to Outer Ring Road. Outer Ring Road is the most deadliest road in Kenya. You will find at Outer Ring Road, we have 3 lanes. Then at some point, it merges into 2 lanes. And if right now you are driving at Outer Ring Road or Eastern Bypass, and you are a new driver on that road, you are likely to die. You can agree with me, engineer, on that. You will find stages on the highway. Whoever designed the Outer Ring Road, that was a big mess. Let me repeat on this again. You will find cows in the middle of the highway at Outer Ring Road. From Pipeline all the way to Allsops, we don't have stages for matatu. And yes, it's very much doable. We can create a quality road which can accommodate vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists.
But don't you
very
see
comfortably.
then the issue is the risk of having those kinds of spots, like for example the trading centers and the stages within specifically such kind of major highways, I think is what it was speaking about, would be increasing the risk of accidents that we're going to witness as a country. So we must find a solution towards changing that, which is, redesigning the roads.
So let me ask you something. If they don't put, pedestrian walkways, so what will happen? These pedestrians will tend to share the road with the vehicles, and that is a fact. Developed countries, when they design the roads, they accommodate both vehicles, pedestrians, and cyclists. And I want an engineer to come out clear on this and explain to Kenyans, because like I've said, right now, Eastern Bypass and Outer Ring Road, whoever designed that road was in a mess. I'll give you a good example. At Northern Bypass, Kenya erected bumps at night, and it's on a slope. Kenyans, drivers gave us a call. We aired the issue. Then the following day, very early in the morning, Kenya came and erected, a sign showing there's a bumps here. I mean, this is a total joke, and we need to get serious. So kindly just engineer, shed more light on this, because ukiangalia tawe bana. And even, by the way, even the Outer Ring Road, from now 3 lanes to 2 lanes, even the sign to show a driver there's a road margin ahead, it's very small.
Okay. We'll hear, you want to respond? Let me give an opportunity to David, and then we'll get to you, then you can respond to that. Yeah.
I will say that when we are designing our roads, we must accommodate everybody, every road user. Because you see, like when you say you are designing a highway from a point A to B, and then you forget in between there are towns and big towns, and there are businesses which are going on from this side and the other side. That means you must elect a path,
an overpass?
yes, underpass or overpass.
Right.
That is a must. And as I support him, Northern, there was a day, you go there, you find a roundabout in the middle of the highway. We even went with the media and we brought a lot of because asking ourselves, how many vehicles had caused accident on that scene. So we have good engineers in this country, but there are sometimes you wonder when they are designing these roads, where are they? Because for instance, I give you a very good example. Look at Nithi River, that bridge. Remember, it was a black spot. It used to kill so many people. What happened when the engineers went there? Today, it is not a black spot. So there are so many things which can be done. But one thing I want us to agree, we are talking more on roads. Let me tell you, I want to say our roads have been done very well, maybe on some parts, because not every part, but there are things which we are missing out.
Right.
Because the most important thing is this. Why is it that we are having these more accidents, and particularly on heavy commercial vehicles and buses now? Matatus now are not involved in accidents. Of late, 3 years down the line, you will see that lorries now are involved in killing Kenyans more than any other vehicles on our roads. Reason being, it's very simple. One, and I think we had highlighted this, we had written even to the minister, Mokomen is aware of this, NTSA, they are aware of this, that vehicles are not going for inspection. Only 30% of vehicles, heavy commercial vehicles, are going for inspection. We have reported that. And in fact, what we did, because we wanted to prove that only 30% vehicles are going for inspection, we have about 1.5 vehicles which are supposed to go for inspection. But today, the vehicles which are going for inspection are only matatus. Today, your vehicle needs to go for inspection. You are told, just get the picture, send the picture, then send the transmission data, and then the vehicle is clear. Ask yourself, even go to Europe, the inspection sticker is there when a vehicle is inspected. Why did we remove the inspection sticker at the windscreen? Because that will help the enforcer on the road to know whether this vehicle has gone for inspection or it has not gone for inspection. But for the elderly, that bus collected 22 people, the elderly people, and it was taking them to Embu town to get the money. And these people never reached Embu town. They were all killed. The bus had an accident. When we asked NTSA, they told us, and it was clear, it was aired, that that vehicle was unroadworthy. For 2 years, it was not supposed to be on the road, but it was operating. When we asked the police officers, they told us, now, how could we know that this vehicle was declared unroadworthy? So there are some things we must sit and agree, that there are things which are happening today, and particularly NTSA. And we want to say, I am one with the association. We fought hard to come up with the NTSA. We did it because we were imagining, why is it a particular person, an individual, Michuki, made it? What about if we have an authority? But I want to tell you for sure, let us take blame where it is. NTSA has failed the Kenyans totally. And I want to tell you,
but the NTSA is actually currently undertaking a retesting of all drivers.
Well, the question I'm asking you, how are they retesting? Do they have driving schools? Do NTSA have driving schools? That is a scam. That is another. Let me ask you. And if I'm lying, I think BBC last year, 3 years back, we did an expose with the BBC, with the Chacha who was working here. And what was the expose talking about? It was very clear that you can get a driving license even without going to school. A new driving license. So where is the scam when you're talking of retesting or getting a new driving license? If you can get it and you have not gone to school, the expose was very clear. You could see the person who received that driving license has never even driven a vehicle. Okay, a vehicle was taken to inspection center 3 years down the line, because that is where we started complaining. And we say, a time is coming, the bomb, the time bomb. And this is the time now. Let me tell you, we are talking of 55 people. On Sunday, 2 trailers hit each other, drivers died. Yesterday, when the CS was there, just there, near that point, another truck had an accident. Ask yourself, why are we only talking about failure of the brakes? The vehicle, the driver was unable to control the vehicle. Why are these things coming? Do you want to tell me engineers from Europe, Kenya are foolish to say that these vehicles must be subjected for inspection? Let me tell you, there is no shortcut. If we want to reduce this carnage, we must first of all ask ourselves, where did we go wrong? And we have tried to seek appointment with Murkomen. He was ready to meet us, but we know the forces of corruption are fighting to make sure that we don't meet the CS, because these are some of the things we want to let the CS understand. Because when you talk of the camera, which is very nice, because you will get all you need is getting that picture. But already we have gadgets which are transmitting, giving the real time as we are talking. Are they using that? Can we see the police officer using this? There is a problem, and we have to admit there is a problem. There is the infighting between the police and NTSA. Who will control the road? So when NTSA were removed on the road, they removed the sticker, so that the police officer will not be able to know that this vehicle was inspected or not. Okay. There is a lot of things happening. So the best thing, we must correct this thing.
Okay, and I think it would be fair to get NTSA to respond to some of those issues. We did ask them to join us for the conversation this morning. Unfortunately, we could not get a representative from NTSA to come in this morning. They would have been fantastic to respond to that, right? Very well.
Let me just add something. They cannot come.
No, it's not about they could not come. There was a very good reason why, and they did apologize for that, because we couldn't get a representative because most of the officers were actually out of office today, and also they were following up on the issue of Londiani, I believe, from our producers. But we'll be giving them the questions and, you know, responding perhaps to some of the accusations that you've made this morning, and literally just hear from what NTSA's perspective is really in terms of some of those things that you've said. But yes, yes, Daniel.
Let me just add on something. You've talked about retesting of drivers.
Yes.
We are not against that, but that will encourage corruption at NTSA. Clearly. Big time. Yes. That will be an milking ATM at NTSA. Yes. Why am I saying this?
Is it about corruption, or is it really into trying to manage a situation that is already bad?
Let me just break it down for you to understand. Back then, even now, drivers have DLs, but they've never stepped on a driving school. What does that tell you? Number one, there is corruption. Number two, this person who has driven for more than 10 years, he does not know about the basics of the road.
So who's to blame then?
He cannot interpret the basics, road signs, road markings. For example, if you do not go to a driving school and you have a DL, then you are being called for retesting. What will happen? You will try all means possible to pass that examination because you don't want to fail. So corruption will take place at that point because drivers will feel, mimi siwezi anguka hapa, afadhali niungane nipite hii kitu.
So then who's to blame? Isn't it,
let me tell you something.
Under the,
what we are against is
a liability that is imposed on the drivers as well, who are going to give out that hongo?
What we are saying is this: we are not against retesting for drivers. What we are against is this: the fees. Okay. If NTSA is genuine and want to impact knowledge on drivers, let this be free or at a small fee.
Yes, not 5.
Are we together? Not that huge money, because that will encourage corruption. And this, even up to now, we have facts. How much drivers are paying to pass that examination, and this is a fact. So this will encourage, and I want to second Mr. Kerry. There is force behind us meeting the new CS for transport on Esmas. There are people who are fighting us for us not to see him and tell him the truth.
All right.
And like I said, whoever is advising our CS currently, I think, is at some point misleading him because he's not telling him the truth, what is happening on the ground.
Okay.
Yes.
Prof,
and you know another
you've had
if we want to reduce this thing, please let us talk the truth. Let's put facts on the table because we are losing Kenyans. Now, if we talk of this corruption in NTSA, we are not people who are supposed to deal with that corruption. We have bodies which are supposed to enter into NTSA. We have written to ACC. We have told them, please check on this, because if we continue with this, we will continue blaming each other. Roads are not done well. People are selling their nini. Look at the vehicle which killed our people. It came from Rwanda. It came all the way from Rwanda, came and killed our people. When it is in Rwanda, it was doing at 80. Okay. But when it came to Kenya, they removed the speed governor because they know in Kenya, speed, you can do any speed. But go to Rwanda now. You want to take anything to Rwanda. When you get at the border point, you are told, if your vehicle has no speed governor, you will not enter this country. Right. Why are we allowing this? The other time, we talked of people dying in Naivasha. we lost 40 Kenyans. A vehicle coming from Uganda, it burst into flames, hitting a bump. We killed the 40 Kenyans. Something was done. Have they implemented what they said at the point of the entry of a vehicle coming from another country? Have they implemented that?
Okay. Prof,
there was a
so much has been
to me
said.
directly.
Oh yes, okay, so let me
add onto that.
Okay, then you'll get your opportunity which comes anyway, right?
I think the main thing, as we said from the beginning,
right,
is culture change. And culture change is both from the service delivery, people who are offering the service, as well as people who are using the service.
Right.
So clearly, we have not changed our culture. And why I wanted to add on to this, now the World Bank, whenever they fund road projects, they actually insist that you must have a sociologist there. And this explains what the engineer was trying to say. As we are just designing a highway, highway cannot mix with people. Highway must mix with people. And if it doesn't mix with people, like my experience in South Africa, for instance, they are fenced, so nobody can cross them. And they don't go through market centers. We have not done that. And I think the engineer explained very well that we dropped that in 1963, where now people are not planning well. If you talk about roads, I know, for instance, if you come from Kindu Bay, they once did a highway that bypassed the town. That completely killed the market there. The same thing happened in Yala when they built a road that bypassed the citizen. So knowing that this is the Kenya you are working on, and as you're saying, in concert with spatial planners, how well do you do this? If the roads have to pass out of the town, so be it. So that, like you've seen with Nairobi now, we're doing our bypasses all over. Ideally, that's what should be happening, so that we stick to what the engineer is saying, that the roads and the highways and people do not mix. But immediately you mix them, then you have to think of how do these people then behave here. The same with the way we use our matatus. I don't know for how long, maybe 10 years now. I've been using 1,500 shillings to go to Kisumu. The same, and petrol has been really, really increasing. So I wonder, what kind of business are these guys doing? Is this really legitimate business? Up to today, if you go to railways there, you'll still find gari ya mbao. Now you wonder mbao the whole day. What other business? Probably David will tell, but what business are they really doing to make the money? This mbao has been there for 10 years. Right. And petrol has over that period really, really increased. So Kenyans must be really honest with one another. And then going back to that outer ring road, again, the design. I don't know how Howard will explain this. I drive through there all the time. Just by the GSU there, they have massive overhead that nobody uses. You know, people are ever down there. So you would tell us really what is the problem. You can't be designing roads and overpasses that are extremely dirty, that are never cleaned. They're not designed to be self-cleaning. If they don't do those overpasses that nobody uses, you go towards Kino, they're doing some underpasses that again nobody passes there because you'll be marked down there. They're ever flooded. Surely something must be done. And I think I would.
We have to take a break, but I'll give you an opportunity, engineer, to respond to some of those issues before we take a break. Yes, all eyes are on you now. So I'm sure you remember the question that Daniel, I think, had posed. So
yes,
you can respond to that as well.
I do remember where Daniel started was on Outer Ring Road.
Yeah.
Because he was specific with a certain road, I wanted to get an opportunity to explain just a few things about Outer Ring Road using very specifics. I want to assume a good number of our audience are able to identify with Outer Ring Road. And secondly, I want to state that when I say that roads are designed for people, I made it clear that we have different road types whose geometric typologies are different, and they serve different purposes. If you put all of them to work in one complete system, then you'll get better results than trying to carry all functions onto one typology of a road and believing that that is supposed to work. On Outer Ring Road, let's go to Outer Ring Road. Outer Ring Road is an urban artery. Despite the fact that it goes through populated places, it carries vehicles, and it's supposed to move them a little bit faster instead of people getting stuck in a jam for 6 hours. It's supposed to move them so that they get to the final destination at the homes. Let's go to Donholm, for example. And those who have lived a long time enough, they know that when you go to Donholm, that turn off into Caltex, it used to be called Caltex, where the main place where Donholm starts.
Right.
If you look at the type of houses that were there before, they were built on Outer Ring Road, and the planners who had planned Outer Ring Road had planned that it should be an urban artery. If you look at those houses, they were actually built facing inside Donholm, not outside on Outer Ring Road. But the habit of Kenyans who think that you get what you want when you want, where you want, they actually opened doors at the back of their buildings into Outer Ring Road. And then other sellers came and put their wares, their merchandise, right on the road to begin selling.
Correct.
Now, this does not mean that at the back of that Donholm estate, there is no business going on. The actual business people who have stalls, who have wares on the road, who are selling bananas, who are selling clothes, and they're making business. But how, if you look at the inner roads, now the ones which are accessing homes and schools and churches, the driving speeds are as low as 5 kilometers per hour, and people can do their business safely. People can cross the road, actually, even without a pedestrian crossing. They're still able to cross their roads, do their businesses, go home and get there safely without being knocked by any vehicles. That is Outer Ring. The same story, even if you came on Wayaki Way. Wayaki Way, if you look at, let's go to Westlands here. At Westlands, there is Chiromo Lane, Chiromo Road behind. Those properties are actually supposed to access through Chiromo Lane. But what happens? Kempinski opens into the highway. Galileo opens into the highway, and people are coming out of a drinking place directly into a highway. Others are actually driving, which is illegal. They drive into the highway, others are walking, and there are vehicles passing here at a high speed. What he says, what Prof says is true. When you are designing a highway typology and it's going through townships, and this happens world over, it's supposed to be carrying traffic at high speeds. Perhaps instead of putting bumps so that you can slow down the vehicles and then people come and begin selling bananas on the road, you fence it. Because I started by saying, and I want to respond to the engineering aspects of accidents. I want to move away from the social aspects where the driver is drunk and what have you. Engineering aspects will be like vehicle designs, brakes. Engineers will design vehicles with better braking efficiency. They will design vehicles with seat belts, but someone still will not put on a seat belt. Then the engineer will design a seat belt that beeps if you don't put it on. Someone still will not put it on. He will make the sound of the beeping louder. Someone will still not put it on. Then he will even create a vehicle that when it beeps and you do not fasten your seat belt, it actually turns off the engine so that it forces you to now fasten your seat belt. And we are grappling with these problems over. When it comes to road design, I do agree partly with them that some of the accidents are caused by road geometry or sometimes surface ride quality. Maybe the road is too smooth, or maybe the road has, like he said, lanes are coming, they're narrowing too fast. I do agree. There are some times where we have design deficiencies. But when we study the accident data around that place, we are able to make a judgment and know that there is a design, there is a geometric problem here, and it can be solved in this manner. This has happened, like what he's saying, at Nithi Bridge. It has also happened at Sachangwan, and solutions have been found geometrically. But these geometric design problems will, again, as I said, will not solve all the problems that we can ever imagine on a road, especially if we are not able to obey basic rules of planning, like ensuring that road design typologies serve very specific purposes. If we want to push all our activities into one typology of a road, then it creates a problem.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. I think we have to take a break on that note. When we come back, I was trying to sample some of the comments that I'm getting. And by the way, there was a statement that was released by the Transport CSI. That was on the 1st of July on some of the regulations that he hopes will be implemented with regards to some of the things in terms of road safety. And there are quite interesting comments there and responses to what the Transport CS had to say. When we come back, we'll look at that as, you know, we try and find a solution to really this particular problem in just not the country, but in Africa as well. So let's take that quick break. We're going to be back.
As a mother, I have to do my duties in the house. It forces me to send her to the river because I have no alternative.
Piaora ok ber, ler be doko ler. Otuo nikech piaora. Otuo ok odhi skul japuonj chunye chandore.
If children had water close by, they won't be sick, they won't be distracted because the water is clean.
Safaricom Business is enabling organizations to connect, protect, enable and transform their businesses by leveraging technology and innovation.
Through technology, we've been able to communicate, keep records, store our data, reach our customers, run our logistics. The future for both Space and Style and Safaricom looks quite promising. We are now looking to go into, digital selling to expand and improve our services and also ensure that our factory and manufacturing processes are actually quite sustainable.
Secure Fiber offers your business a fast, dependable and secure fiber internet connection. Visit www.business.safaricom.co.ke to explore our range of plans tailored to meet your business needs.
My name is Masi Kimani. I take care of technology for Nation Media Group. Every girl deserves a dignified life, and especially during their period cycles. It's really sad that in some instances it comes with a lot of shame. That you think 2 out of 3 girls cannot access sanitary wear is a really sad state of affairs. I think as an organization we want to change the narrative for the girls. I mean, when you have statistics that 25% of girls are going to drop out of school either because of lack of sanitary wear or because they do not have information about their cycle, so they fear, then it tells us that we have work to do. We have a responsibility as individuals and the nation as an organization to want to try and change this narrative for the girls. And that's why the event of Changing Cycles on 15th of July becomes very important for us. I will be attending the Changing Cycle event on 15th of July. You can buy your ticket on kenyabus.com. See you then.
Own your dream home for as low as 1.98 million Kenya shillings in Vipingo Kilifi. SMS Vipingo to 22365 or call us today on 0740 400 215. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, and welcome back to the program you're watching AM Live on NTV as we continue having a discussion on really what solutions we have on the table to curb road carnage in the country, and really just a wider conversation on road safety in the country. Just a couple of days ago, we did have a tweet. I could not get that on our monitor, but just a very quick statement here by the Transport Cabinet Secretary Kipchumba Murkomen on the backdrop of the Londiani Junction accident. He says that he visited the site and gave certain directives. Let's to mention a few directives. All the markets along road reserves should be relocated. The ministry, through the relevant agencies, to revise speed limits in the area. He talked about the NTSA to include dangerous section as one of the spots to install speed detection cameras, especially in the upcoming pilot phase to support the enforcement of traffic laws. The retesting of PSV and commercial service vehicle drivers to continue as a way of assessing their competency before the renewal of driving licenses, which David and Daniel say is not the way forward. The Ministry of to hold consultative meetings with EAC. You have he also speaks of intensifying anti-drunk driving operations across the country. And he also talks about the county governments, so county transport safety committees in the 47 counties to embark on road safety education and awareness programs for traders, pedestrians, school children and border operators. Just to mention a couple of those responses to the Trade Cabinet Secretary at Anwar Sadat, who says the solution really is not relocating markets. Sellers follow the buyers. The solution is proper highway planning and expand, like for example, you can expand the Nairobi Eldoret Highway to multiple lanes road with the rest stops where vendors sell their product. Someone says, but that is not the solution. The solution is not proper highway planning. It is lack of discipline, negligence, and unroadworthy vehicles on the road. And, you know, Kenyans have different views on really where the problem is and where problem lies. Properly designed and built roads is one of the safest way to reduce accidents. If in doubt, the next time, okay, so he talks about a different area in the country. Let's see what else we have here. Just two more comments if I can get. At MXM saying, these directives are informed, Bwana CS. Are these directives informed by research? And if so, why this late? Most of these roads are poorly designed and constructed. I doubt that a road has a shoulder for vehicles to use in case of emergencies. At Frank Muli talks about Kangemi Market, which will still be operating next week as if nothing happened. So it talks about the issue of implementation. And at Ken Ombogo saying, I wish we had a timeline for the implementation of such well thought out ideas. It is better to apply an unpopular policy to save lives and apologize to the living later. So pronounce and enforce ban on hawking along all roads. So there's, you know, different views, Daniel, when we speak about really what needs to be done. But as we wind up, because, you know, in the last stretch of this conversation, let's look at the solutions really on the table. From where you sit, where do we begin addressing this issue?
First and foremost, let me start by saying this. We've really done a campaign on our pages, on our social media pages, about Mansfield Bar.
This is Sikika Road Safety.
Sikika Road Safety. We've done a very strong campaign on Mansfield Bar. Like, for example, like I said, you are mostly to die if you are a new driver at Outer Ring Road or at Eastern Bypass because of stalled rollies. Most vehicles, you know, they use halogen lights, halogen headlights, and they're not that bright. So what happens if you find a stalled rollie at Outer Ring Road without a Mansfield Bar?
Okay.
That is like a slaughter, kichinjio. It will kill you on the spot because your vehicle will go underneath that truck. That is solution number one. Solution number two, on these highways with slopes, steep slopes, we need to have something normally called runaway truck ramp. This has proven to work.
Sure.
Because it stops that vehicle on the spot and it saves more life. A bump cannot stop a truck loaded with brake failure. But a runway truck ramp can stop a truck, a trailer, or a bus, and you save more lives. That is point number two. And point number three, we want to have street road lights. Because Outer Ring, it's dark. Northern Bypass, it's dark, and this is dangerous. And point number four, as I'm closing up, let's have a genuine conversation. Let's empower our drivers with knowledge on road safety. The drivers know how to stop a vehicle which has, you know, loosened brakes. The answer is no. This is kind of conversation we should be having as a country. Because knowledge is power. When we empower these riders and drivers and they get the right education towards road safety, believe you me, we are going to save more lives. And that's why we embarked on a program purely to educate them about road markings, road signs, and highway code. Kama Sikika Road Safety.
Right.
Yes.
And do you agree the same, David?
I want to agree with him 100%. And also, I want to urge or ask our CS, Honorable Mokomen, please have time with stakeholders. Michuki just succeeded because of having dialogue with the real stakeholders, because we will be able to explain what is happening. 20 years experience on road safety is not a joke. We have some things we can at least assist, because we can see there is a blockage, making sure that you cannot access the CS. And most of the things he's talking here, we know we have the solution. We have bodies like KEBS, like now what he's talking, that you find a lorry which is maybe stalls on the road and somebody gets into that road. What causes that? First of all, we have a body here, like the standard. We have Kenya Bureau of Standard. They do the standard of these reflectors, whereby people are getting them now in China, very cheap. You just fix in your vehicle. If a problem happens, the driver who is behind cannot even be able to see this vehicle. Talk about the safety belts. Look at the safety belts which are even fixed in these school buses. If an accident happens, these safety belts are killing our people, because they are just belts just like that. A safety belt, there is a special lining of that safety belt, whereby if something happens, it will pull you and it will bring you back. But look at the safety belts which are used now in Kenya. When an accident happened, that safety belt, if you had put that safety belt, it will get into your body because of the impact. So we need to have a dialogue. We need to have all the stakeholders. We need to have the engineers here. We need to see what is eating us, instead of getting reports from only one source. And the people who are giving our CS the information are the people who are enriching themselves on road safety matters.
So and you're saying what it is a collective responsibility
for
to address
everybody.
These issues. And but you know, even with associations like yourselves, if you're not able to get through to the cabinet secretary, you still have the responsibility to hold civic education, right? On drivers, on pedestrians, on motorists, because we're talking about collective responsibility.
Let me explain to you. When you want to give civic education, for instance, to a driver, how do you try to convince somebody who has never even entered a school? How do you convince a boda rider who has never seen what a school is? He does not know anything to do with the rules of the road. So this is where we are saying we need to have a proper conversation.
With the policy makers?
With the policy makers, all the stakeholders involved. And with that, like for instance, look at our records. Today you are talking of how many people have died on our roads. How did they get these figures? The figures we have is only for the people who die on the spot. But those people who die after that accident, we don't have those figures. That is why you realize there is a lot of difference. Last year we were talking, the NTSA gave us a record of 4,600 people lost their lives.
Right.
But look at the World Health Organization. The report was about 8,000 people lost their lives in Kenya. Why? We need to have the multi-agency so that we know if this person was taken to a certain hospital, what was the cause of this death, even if it has 2 years, 3 years, because it is not a must that when an accident happens, most of them don't die there. So we need to have these records so that we know what are we doing. Look at the COVID time. We were able to be given all these reports and people were able to take care of themselves. But with road safety, which is killing more people, COVID went for 3 years. It only killed 5,000. Last year, we lost 8,000 people. The figures which were given were completely wrong. So you imagine 8,000 with 1 year.
But those were the official figures.
Even if you say official 4,600 in a year, it is worrying. We should think, who are these people who are dying? They are human beings. We are losing Kenyans, and in big numbers. And we only talk in Kenya about those people who die, but we don't talk about the people who will never walk again. You had somebody like Chacha today. He goes with a wheelchair. He was working in Nation. So we have so many people, because when you count of 4,600 people lost their lives, multiply that by 3, you get the number of the injured, those people who will never do anything again in this country. So it is something which should be discussed. Let us not politicize it, saying that these people are challenging. If we challenge, if we bring a challenge to somebody, let them first of all realize that this challenge is real. If we say today that NTSA is like a dead body, we have the right to say that, because what are they doing? If it fails, then we go back to the police. That is what we can say, because NTSA has failed. Why is it when NTSA was under Major, why did it save lives? Why is it now? Then there is a problem. then the government should know, yes, there is a problem. So when we say a certain individual is not doing his work, you know, in Europe countries, like now 56 people who died, somebody was supposed to resign, don't wait to be sacked. Now I cannot tell the CS to resign because he has just entered in that docket and he's trying to streamline, but people should resign. The DG must resign. Other people must resign. I don't want to mention their names because they are not here to defend themselves, but let us face the fact. We will always have these accidents. You will be calling us when many people die, but when these are not reported, you will not call us here. But let me tell you, we are losing a big number of Kenyans.
But David, it doesn't escape that the responsibility doesn't fall on NTSA alone. We are talking about a holistic approach towards these issues. When we're talking about
why we say everybody
engineering,
has a
when we're talking about
responsibility.
what Prof was saying, the culture of driving, overtaking, and you know, driving along pavements.
How do we change this culture if we don't have civic education? Who will do this? NTSA, funded even by World Bank, having this money. The other day, we know over 100 million was given by EU for such civic education. We want to see this money utilized.
All right, we'll put those questions forth to NTSA because they're not here to defend themselves on some of those accusations. But Prof, very quickly, from where you sit, solution?
Road safety needs to be taken much more seriously, and especially with the designers. I'm so happy that we are here with Howard. I don't know how frequently they even do road safety audits. As I say, I'll talk about roads I know. For instance, Ahero, Kisumu.
Right.
I rarely ever pass there without seeing somebody dead, knocked over. Especially motorcyclists are now the most at risk and vulnerable. And most of them, they don't even make the news. Regularly, when I used to be an active engineer, I knew that a road safety audit should be taken every 3 to 5 years, or whenever there is a new development coming up. I don't know how regularly they do that, and that need to change. And then the Kenyan themselves, the public. Remember, an overloaded matatu kills more people than if it had just carried the right number and had the accident. They have this thing they call sambaza, that if you refuse, you, the passenger, will the other passengers will kick you out because they want the matatu to fill up fast so that they go. So as you said, and as we have, it's both sides. It's co-production of quality. Road safety is everybody's responsibility. And let it start with all of us. Before the policeman takes the bribe, let the person who wants to get into the full matatu not get in. You know, as just that's one aspect of it, you know, overloading and all that. So that those matatus can also now charge the correct fare. So that can enable them to go for regular maintenance. That can enable them not to bribe a police officer. Because if you are sure that everything is fine, you can just tell the police officer to check and sit back. You know, but because they also know 1 or 2 things is not right, they would rather pay and go. So the cultural aspect is key.
Right. Yeah. So when you look at that particular issue, Engineer, very quickly also as you wind up on this conversation.
I must say we need safe vehicles, we need safe speeds, we need safe roads, we need safe road users, we need post-crash care in a complete system of taking care of road safety. But I'll go back to what I mentioned, that we will keep on coming to discuss deaths and serious injuries if we cannot fix our spatial planning and if we cannot fix our development control.
But why is it taking it
But let
so
me say
long?
this. Let me say this. We are in a mess already as we speak right now. We are in a mess as far as spatial planning and development control is concerned. However, the fact that we are in a mess does not mean that we sit back and do nothing. One, we can make decisions to stop the mess from being propagated. And then 2, we can try to find ways to walk back. Because I've been to some cities which look very forward, they're very forward looking, very organized, everything is done seamlessly. A good example is Singapore. And I thought that Singapore just happened. Then one time when I tried to look at the story of the city, I realized that it also had, it was also messy at some point. Recently I met some experts from, I think they were sponsored by JICA to do development plans for Mombasa City. When I was speaking to one of them and I was telling them how hopeless our situation is, he said something that got me thinking. He told me, by the way, the city of Tokyo used to look like the messy Mombasa today. But this message gives hope that it doesn't matter how messy our situation is, there is chance that we can walk backwards and get back to order. You know, the topic of today is restoring order on the roads. But I strongly condemn the thinking that we can restore order by trying to create piecemeal solutions. It cannot end with the, you know, just going, it is good to sensitize people, but if you sensitize them and you can still not get an orderly living environment, then we are likely going to continue struggling with the problem for a long period of time. But let me make some more statements. Spatial planning and development control is a multidisciplinary practice to make it happen. Sometimes the moment you mention that, you are told first, from a social perspective, that the people will not accept. And then secondly, you are told that the politicians will bring problems. But I think these are very key stakeholders in this conversation, because today, if we wanted to walk back the journey, the three key people in this country who are going to make that happen is the CS lands, the CS infrastructure, other counterparts CSs who deal with infrastructure institutions, and most importantly, the president. I think we are lucky to have the type of president that we have, particularly because he is very decisive. He can push things and make them happen. The difference is that as long as he's served with the correct information and he makes that decision, he's probably capable. He has the force, the stamina to push it and make it happen. If those three people could have a sitting, and of course there are experts working under them and they're able to get instructions and advice from them, so that they bring together the disciplines. And some of the disciplines that are going through my mind is, we have planners in the country who have been very quiet for a long time, but I'm glad they are waking up recently, from the time of Professor Kaimenyi, where he started now implementing Article 66 and developed instruments that are supposed to enforce spatial planning and the Physical and Land Use Planning Act. Okay, the planners have been coming up. The architects, that person who says, when a client comes and he wants me to design a building, I need to refer to an integrated development plan. I need to tell him, here you cannot build a flat, but you must build a go down. Those architects, they need to be on board. And who will say that the law says this is a building line, the law says this is a setback, we are on a highway, so you cannot build smack on the edge of your plot. If you're on a highway, move back 9 meters or something like that. Then the engineers, of course, we have said that some of the problems that we experience is because of engineering, but engineering is a discipline that is a bit rigid. It works with numbers and figures. You do not design something because you feel it should be like. Unlike architects who are very free thinkers like politicians, they can go totally wild.
All right.
Engineers have no that opportunity, they have no that luxury. They have to work within specific calculations, reach a conclusion, and then make a decision.
Okay.
Yes.
But we do agree that at the end of it all, a majority of the accidents that we see on our roads are preventable.
Yeah, sure, they are preventable. And that's why we are saying we need to walk back the journey and get an orderly environment. It will give more benefits than just road safety.
Okay. And just to mention a couple of comments here, you have Eric Eja Shom saying we should emulate Tanzania, which has provided off-road PSV stages in main towns along the highways, where vehicles detour to drop passengers and also incorporate market for small-scale traders. James Karanja saying, in fact, bumps on highways increase accidents. Imagine if a vehicle that loses control at 80 kilometers per hour and then it hits a bump, we instantly get an accident. We also do have Alvin Luque saying, campaigns on highways awareness should be priority. Everyone should be responsible for himself and other road users' safety. Safety on our highways involves a lot, not only a few. The blame game should end. Ochieng Baraza saying, that's a modern road. Service lanes along the main road answers your questions. And finally, Ken Yugi, you had them all, politicians yesterday, talking about speed control as if that was the only cause of the accident. Just get people off the road. That's simple, according to him. And much more comments here, but let's continue having that conversation online. But that's just what Kenyans feel about this particular issue. Knee-jerk reaction, some say, but we need to have a much more comprehensive conversation around the same. Time to wind up the conversation. David, we're almost out of time, but yes, very quickly.
One thing I want to tell Kenyans is that
Right.
road safety is everybody's responsibility.
Correct.
We cannot say we give it to the police, NTSA. It is you yourself.
Right.
When you're getting to that vehicle, it is loaded. Please don't get into that vehicle. When you see the driver is drunk, please get out of that vehicle, because at the end of the day,
personal responsibility.
it is personal responsibility.
Right.
We can blame NTSA. We can blame.
We can have
but
good roads.
We can have all these good roads
regulations.
and everything. But
Right.
everything lies on us as Kenyans.
Right.
Please let us take care. We are losing so many Kenyans. Let us take care of our sister, our brothers, and our mothers and
Indeed.
fathers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, David Kiarie, Chair of the Road Safety Association of Kenya. Daniel Kilu is the founder and CEO of Sekika Road Safety. Also, Engineer Howard Mai, who's a member of the Institution of Engineers of Kenya, and Professor Collins Miruka, public and development expert in this context, at least for the conversation. But thank you, gentlemen, for coming in this morning. I think there's so much more that we need to look into, but perhaps some of those, comments that you've made, perhaps some of the solutions that you've put on the table today can be able to be implemented. And perhaps, the government can be able to listen to that particular issue. Well, this is where we wind up on AM Live. Thank you so much for staying with us. The hashtag, as always, is MLiveNTV. Let's continue having that conversation. I will be coming back shortly with Your World, holding brief for Winnie Lubembe. So stay tuned for that, because that's happening in just a couple of minutes. See you then.